What's going on, Jeromes? So Friday, the Minnesota Vikings made a very aggressive move getting into the back end of the first round, acquiring a second first-round pick from the Houston Texans, and now they have 11 and 23. What it be? They can stick and pick, or what's more likely, they can make a very aggressive move into the top 5, maybe even top 4, and secure their quarterback of the future. And Kwesi, I understand that Kwesi, rightfully to a degree, has gotten a lot of criticism from the Vikings fans and the league writ large, but Kwesi, he's taking a chance, rambling and gambling, and he's actually doing something. He's actually being very aggressive, moving up the draft board, so I'm pretty excited about it. But a lot of people have questioned, why make the trade with the Texans now, and how come there hasn't been a subsequent add-on trade following? So here are 5 reasons. So just want to break down various angles of this transaction and what it could mean for the Vikings going forward. Why the Vikings made the trade with the Texans right now. Number 1 is tangible. All right, so I'm sure that Kwesi has had conversations with the Commies at 2, the Patriots at 3, the Cardinals at 4, the Chargers at 5. If he hasn't, he wouldn't be doing his job. But instead of, hey, what if we acquired a second first-round pick? What would that do for you? What would that make the trade look like? Instead of having to deal with hypotheticals, which are really tough to get a deal done, now Kwesi has that tangible draft pick. So he has that 23rd overall pick. So the Vikings have something that the Giants, the Broncos, and the Raiders can't offer, is 2 first-round picks in this draft. Yes, the Giants are at 6, but immediate draft picks, the Vikings can certainly get that done. And also, it's outside the box thinking too, because it's exceedingly rare. I actually can't remember another time when a back half of the first round pick was traded. Where top half, top 10 of the draft gets traded all the time, but a back end of the first round where a team trades out, I mean, that usually doesn't happen until draft day, where a team sees the board and a team like the Vikings want to move up for that pick, and then they give up the second and a future second for 23. So props to Kwesi again for thinking outside the box, where maybe some of the teams were thinking about this too, but the Vikings beat them to the punch and they got it done. Number 2, box out. All right, so like we said before, the Vikings, before the trade, were basically in a similar situation as the Broncos and the Raiders. Now, the Raiders did sign Gardner Minshew, and they have Aiden O'Connell, but the Raiders could have been players trading up too. Steelers could have been in the mix, although they're at 20, and then they just traded for Justin Fields, and they have Russ. But I think the Broncos were on relatively equal footing with the Vikings. Yes, the 11 and 12 picks. Stupid-ass Sean Payton reportedly was all in on J.J. McCarthy, and I think that our guy Jumpin' George Payton could have been a threat to leapfrog the Vikings and get up into the stratosphere and get the quarterback that the Vikings actually wanted. Now, it does come down to a debate. Who do the Vikings want? Is it May? Is it J.J. McCarthy? Is it Jaden Daniels? Williams probably spoken for with the Bears at 1, but we will find out. But the Vikings, boxing out on the Broncos and the Raiders and the Giants, they can offer more right now. And like we said, yes, the Giants are at 6, but in terms of immediate draft picks, the Vikings do have a leg up in negotiations over the Giants, over the Broncos, and as well as over the Raiders. Next up, number 3, be the firstest with the mostest. All right, so the Vikings. Again, this was a aggressive preemptive move by Kwesi because, well, like we said, it's very rare. I can't remember another time when a back half of the first round pick was traded with a team coming on up and acquiring it. Now, could the Broncos and the Raiders have thought about this too? And hell, if the Broncos would have made this deal and they would have had 12 and 23, they would have been in a superior bargaining position. But now, I think the Vikings are head and shoulders above any other team that wants to move up, including the Giants. And now, yes, the Giants could be desperate because Joe Shane and Dable definitely need a win. But also, I mean, the Giants do have 2 second-round picks, but they're not first-rounders. And again, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that unless they weren't even thinking about this because there wasn't any precedent. And again, props to Kwesi for thinking outside the box. What was stopping the Giants with using their 2 second-round picks to maneuver up and get 23 with the Texans? Did they even think to call the Texans in this spot? Also, were there any other teams open for business on the back end of the first round, or did no one even think about this? It's crazy. So the Vikings, with that preemptive strike. Next up, number 4, price will go up. So, yes, by all the trade charts, like, the Vikings got fleeced by the Texans. Not necessarily, because I think the Texans know that they're being used. by teams that want to move up, and they're fine with that. So that's why the Vikings paid a little bit of a premium. But what if the other teams were in on the deal? What if this was a bidding war and Kwesi ultimately came out on top? Plus, as we get closer to the draft and teams start getting a little bit itchy, it's a deadline-driven league. And hell, during the draft, I mean, that pick may have been super value, especially if the board fell the right way inside the top 5. So, I mean, it could have been a future first on top of 42 for the Vikings to get 23 away from the Texans. So, Kwesi getting something down now, that does make sense. Next up, number 5, why Kwesi did the trade now, draft floor. So, even if things fall apart, now, best laid plans, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, but yeah, I mean, the Vikings probably have some tacit agreements in their back pocket for picks 2 through 5, right? But if for some reason, some way, someone goes back on their word or a deal doesn't work out, the Vikings still have 2 first-round picks in the meat of this draft, and they can still draft a quarterback as well as addressing other needs and getting premium players. So if this is it, like if there's no other trades, I'm still very happy with what the Vikings did getting into the back end of the first round. And lastly, we'll add one more. So a lot of people are wondering, is that, hey, how come there hasn't been a second trade? How come Kwesi hasn't immediately flipped this thing like when the Niners moved up to number 3 in 2021 for Trey Lance? Well, what if Kwesi is letting 2, 3, 4, 5 bid? What if it's a spot where the Vikings know who they want? Say the Vikings know who they want of May, Daniels, or McCarthy, or say maybe they're completely indifferent. Maybe they're so close and they find that they could work with any of the 3, and they're so similarly graded that they're just like, okay, whoever we get, which could make. I mean, this is a deep-ass quarterback class. I mean, there's plus and minuses for every single guy and reasons for every single guy to work out with the Vikings. And also, whoever that quarterback is, he's going to be walking into potentially the best rookie situation for a presumed rookie first-round starter in years, right? So it could be that Kwesi could be entertaining offers from Washington, from New England, from Arizona, from the Chargers. Now, the Vikings are going to pay a premium. Yes, they are, because a team asking to move is always going to pay a little bit more. So I'm guessing if they want to get up to 2, 3, it's going to be 11, 23 on a future first. If it's 4 or 5, maybe 11, 23 future third, maybe one of the fourths this year, somewhere in there. Either way, it's going to be a pretty penny. But since the Vikings have effectively eliminated the Broncos and the Raiders from bidding, and really the only other player at the table is the Giants, I mean, that does decrease the leverage of some of these other teams. Now, it's still there. It's still there because the Vikings want to move up. But now, instead of gouging the Vikings' eyes out, maybe the commies or the Patriots just swing a sweetheart deal. And there's a difference there. I mean, it could be the difference between adding a couple of these extra 4th-round picks that the Vikings have or a future third as a part of the deal. So it could be a leverage spot too. And like we said, the Vikings do have the leverage of walking away and just picking at 11-23, which is not the end of the world either. So Kwesi's certainly not caught with his pants down, and this was a damn good trade. And again, it's something that we didn't even think of, because when's the last time a back half of the first round team has traded 6 weeks out from the draft? It's unheard of. So I'm really digging this one, and I think that Kwesi is indeed cooking in this spot. So pretty fired up, man. But your thoughts are thoughts. Why Kwesi trade with the Texans now? Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.